I have here is my Revolutionary War Redcoat Wizard Squadron. You know, from the Harry Potter universe. I know Harry Potter doesn't really take place in the War of Independence, but let's pretend that King George III has hired a wizard squadron to defeat George Washington's army. I decided to make this video because Harry Potter is celebrating his 225th birthday, and America is celebrating 250 years of their existence. I mean, independence from Britain. Well, we're not independent from Britain because the Harry Potter franchise has taken over the Hollywood film industry and our culture too. And basically I made this one guy the hat there to pretend I was like a witch or a wizard with a wand. I should make like a lady witch. I think I should turn out into a lady witch, but during the American Revolution, none of the women ever served as redcoats. They're mostly nurses. Not in the army, of course. The Gulf War is actually the first war women get to serve in the army to fight with other guys. That was in 1991. Women get to serve in the army in the Gulf War. I don't know if British women ever served in the army in the Gulf War. Mostly American women. And this is the general with the magic wand. And this is the Air Force squadron of the Redcoats. Even though the Air Force was not established until the 1910s era, after the Wright brothers invented the airplane. But do you guys know hot air balloons were kind of like the first aircraft the military used since the American Civil War about 160 years ago, I believe? Let's pretend the Redcoats have like a wizard squadron and they have flying brooms. Can you imagine if George Washington ever saw like these redcoats using brooms that can fly around? And George Washington would be like, why are these redcoats flying? What in the devil is going on here? And one of the officers would be like, I don't get it either, George Washington. This is creepy and weird. And they have brooms that can fly? Brooms are not for flying. They're for sweeping. Since George Washington lived in Virginia, he might witness a couple of girls practicing witchcraft. Maybe George Washington would be like, looks like the redcoats are practicing witchcraft. Even though they're not girls and women, they're men. Men practicing witchcraft. That's strange. Allow me to give you the backstory of the Redcoats wizard squadron of the American Revolution. Technically, one of the Redcoat soldiers are actually Hogwarts students. Some of them were graduates from Hogwarts, some of them were attending Hogwarts. And King George III gave them letters to hire them to participate in the British Army. As like kind of like an apology letter between wizards and muggles, or to encourage all the wizards to join the army as Redcoat soldiers for jobs, of course. But unfortunately, instead of guns that the wizards would be using, these magic wands. Because King George thinks that magic wands are more powerful than guns. And brooms are more powerful than horses. If the Redcoats do have an army, that would mean George Washington's army would have been defeated in 5 seconds or 20 seconds. And the Redcoats would have won the American Revolution, and our country would be under British rule. I don't know if California would be a British colony. It's a little bit kind of far away from Virginia and Pennsylvania and New York. California and Nevada will remain Spanish colonies if the British win the American Revolutionary War. And the French can own the middle part of the United States. Maybe the British will own the middle part of the United States since the British had defeated the French during the French Indian Wars. They would take over the middle part of the United States. And also, but the British decided not to take over the West Coast because that's Spanish territory. And there's no revolution, and Mexico will be under Spanish rule. But what would happen if the wizards participate in the American Revolution? Are they going to defeat George Washington? I don't know. Hopefully not. That would be a really sad ending for America. But don't worry, everyone. George Washington had a couple of wizards in his squadron. Why does George Washington have wizards in his squadron? Well, technically, these guys are Hogwarts students, and they betrayed their country in England just to join the American side to protest King George's taxes. Also, the reason why that the wizards want to join George Washington's side is because they don't trust King George III because he's a little bit kind of racist towards wizards. I really really don't know. I think these guys just want to get away from persecution by immigrating to America, like Virginia or Boston or Pennsylvania whatsoever. I understand that Stranger Things and Where to Find Them takes place in New York City. I don't really know New York City very well. I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Los Angeles, California. New York City is a really unknown territory to me. Here it is, George Washington talking to the wizards about their assignment. It turns out these Hogwarts students are secret agents and spies working for George Washington to sabotage the Redcoat army based on their magical skills. Nothing much to say. That is my wizard squadron of the American Revolution. Hold up in a second. I'm not done with the video yet. As you can see here, these guys are not British or American. They're Mexican and Spanish from California. Yeah, because I am from California. According to my research, the early people who lived here back in 200 years ago were cowboys. Aristocratic rich cowboys. Ranchos, of course. They make a living by selling beef to people. That's how they get rich. Can you imagine they might have wizards that live in California? Does Spain have wizards and magic? I don't think Spanish people believe in magic or fantasy stuff. Well, sometimes they do because maybe some British wizards brought magic to Spaniards. I don't even know what type, if Spain have any magical folklore. Mexico does. Mexico has lots of magical folklore. And the guy you see right here, it's a Mexican settler who lived in Los Angeles, California in 1781. And he's a wizard, of course, like a wizard rancho or a farmer. And he uses magic wand to grow all the plants quickly and get around cattle, using his magic broom to fly across the get-around cattle without a horse. And sometimes he sells beef using magic to teleport them to a magic school in Spain or Mexico City. I know California is a city of movie stars and stuff like that. Back in those days, Mexicans and Spaniards were the only people that lived in California 200 years ago. And Spanish was the language of California. That's why California and Los Angeles are Spanish words, not English words like in the East Coast. And there you have it, folks. My Revolutionary War Harry Potter fan art. Even though I decided to make the Harry Potter Revolutionary War Legos because this year is 25 years of Harry Potter and this year is 250 years of our nation. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, buenas noches, mi amigos. Hasta luego or something like that. I'm just trying to speak to the Spanish because that was the language how the early people spoke here 200 years ago. Hasta la vista, baby. Gracias por ver el video, amigos. Hasta mañana.